format, right? So as part of YAML file format, also we can configure our properties information in place of properties file, dot properties file. So it's a very simple and straightforward. Only thing is you just need to know how to define properties in hierarchy of YAML file format. That is what you have to know. Other than that, there is nothing much to discuss about the YAML file. Okay. So a couple of applications will use YAML file. So there you will see this kind of format inside the YAML file. The properties will be configured in the YAML file. I mean, in this format, like hierarchy format or staircase format, we can call it as. Okay. So today I'm going to discuss one more important topic called as logging in real-time applications. Okay, loggers, logging, everything is same, representing the same point. So here, even sometimes people will call it as loggers also. So loggers in our Spring Boot application or any real-time application. So generally, yesterday I told you, I mean, we already discussed 1 or 2 points yesterday before leaving. Whenever we want to know that the behavior and execution of the program, behavior and execution of program. So what is the meaning of behavior and execution of program here? We will write down the program. Generally, we will write down the programs. We will write down the logic and everything. So once program logic implementation is completed, whenever we want to understand how the program is executing, how the program is behaving, that means program means here assume you written 4 to 5 Java classes, and out of 4 to 5 Java classes, one Java class is calling another Java class methods. And whenever you started executing, so you have to understand, okay, in which order, which method is calling, at what time, which method is calling, which method making the problem, which method making the, okay, success result. So that is what about the behavior and execution. As part of execution, which method is behaving as what? So that is what the process here it is. Method 1 is calling to the method 2. Similarly, method 2 is calling method 3. So similarly, method 3 is calling method 4. So in the sequence of method callings or in the sequence of program execution from one class to another class or one method to another method. So whenever we want to understand how the execution, how the behavior is happening from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, that means at one method level what is happening, 2 method level what is happening, 3 method level what is happening. Like that, if you want to understand the execution and behavior of the program execution flow, then what is the alternative we know? Tell me. So we discussed about, as of now, what we are writing always, system.out.println. So why we are using always system.out.println in our logics, tell me. Generally, as of now, you written thousands of times till today, right? System.out.println. Why are you writing most of the times? To print this some value, to print result or to print values. Why are you printing first of all? You have to understand, like you have to get a confidence, like whether the result is coming as expected or not. Is it giving null or empty or all the results giving as expected or not, right? To understand your purpose, you are writing the system.out.println, right? So here, however, we are writing the system.out.println, wherever we want to understand the execution flow or printing the results, right? So printing the return values, whatever the purpose you are writing the system.out.println as of now. Yeah, so whatever the purpose we are writing the system.out.println till today, the same purpose, okay, whatever the purpose we are writing, right? So the same purpose point of view are, when it comes to the real-time applications, we will never ever use the system.out.println, okay, as part of the real-time applications. Even we will never write down single system.out.println in real-time applications. We will not write down one single line also. But at the same time, real-time applications are very important and real-time applications are very crucial. So we have to maintain a lot of program execution flow or loggers with respect to successful scenarios, with respect to failure scenarios, with respect to exceptional scenarios. You have to write down always a loggers. Okay, I mean, you have to write down always a flow of messages. You have to maintain as a track of the execution. So how you are going to maintain? For that, in place of system.out.println, we have a concept called as loggers concept. Okay, logging means generally, what is the general meaning of logging? Logging means just you are representing something. You are maybe something you are writing or logging something. Okay, he's logging his information. So I'm just giving a statement like so and so person logging his information. That means he was writing. He was filling a form or he was writing something. So he was logging the information. Similarly here, the logging means that is what? When you are writing the programming logic, okay, whenever you are executing a number of lines, whenever you are calling different methods from different classes. So if you want to understand behavior and execution of the program, so you have to always write down loggers in place of system.out.println. Okay, fine. So, and not only that purpose. For example, okay, let me take a small example we can understand very easily. Okay, here we have a lot of REST services. So in future, for example, assume you are writing login. Do we have anywhere else login? Okay, whatever it is, candidate login, REST service we have. So in case if you don't have these lines, system.out.println, let me start our application. Okay, we have already data also ready. Okay, so you got as a response user login success. Now, something I given suresh@gmail.com and I sent a request. User login success you got. Okay, so generally we hard coded here, but assume service, repository, point of view, whatever you written. Now in my case, for example, if I don't have this sysouts, okay, let me send the request now one more time. So how can you say that at what time Dilip logged in into our application? So for example, now Suresh is the person logged into our application, right? So he got login success. So he started accessing our backend functionality from the front end point of view. Now so on, so Suresh is the user trying to log in into our application. So here at the same time, as a proof, as a tracking purpose, as a tracing purpose, we have to maintain the login activity. Okay, at what time so and so Suresh user sent the login request, at what time he logged into the application. Okay, you have to maintain a trace of the trace also. Trace means tracing, right? So you have to maintain a log trace log flow. So you have to maintain a trace. So how it is possible? For example, I deleted system.out.println here. So here any messages are printing like Dilip Suresh is logged in at so and so time like that. No, right? So then in future your application, okay, is used by multiple thousands of millions of users. Okay, millions of users. Sometimes what will happen when you are calling to the customer care, when you are getting any problem in phone pay, or sometimes if you are calling to the customer care or banking issues, they will ask you one thing. At what time you made the transaction? Assume your transaction is failed, you did not receive the refund in your banking operation, something like that, right? So have you faced any time this one? So when you are calling to the customer care, they will collect your details. What details? At what time you initiated the transaction? Can you give me the exact, at least time around the time? At what time you made the transaction? Why they are asking that time? So that means now that customer care team, they will collect. Okay, now you will say like yesterday, April 11th, in between 10 to 10:30, I made the transaction, it was failed. Today it is 6 days, still I was not received refund. Now you are saying like April 11th, 10 to 10:30. So that information is very crucial for the people to trace, to track whether you really made at the time transaction or not. In case if you made the transaction, why transaction is failed. Okay. At the same time, the amount is deducted from your account is really credited to the other account or not. So why the exception, why you got transaction failed? What is the reason? Whether you have low amount or maybe you are having sufficient amount, but still any another issue. At the same time, the amount is debited from your account is really credited to the other account or not. If not credited, why it's not okay debited to you? I mean, again, credited back to your account. So to identify all this information, so they will ask this timestamp at what time you tried. Now you will say like April 11th. Okay, so this is what happens in every application. Okay, now you will say like April 11th, in between 10 to 10:30, you made the transaction error. Now what they will do is, after that, this will be reported to the supporting team, okay, sometimes, and they will tell so-and-so user. So every user will have a unique customer account number or not. Bank account number is a unique number or not. So they will have your bank account number, right? Based on that account number, they will verify, they have to verify now. On April 11th, April 11th is how many days back? 5 days back, right? So they have to verify at April 11th, so-and-so customer with this account number 122345 logged into our application and he started initiated the transaction of transfer. So like that, they have to verify. So in such case also, if you are not writing logged into mobile bank application, so after that, if you are calling one more method, transfer method, something like that. Okay, I will do one thing quickly. Bank controller. Okay, so here, assume I'm calling a transfer method. Okay, so here, for example, if you see now, so I just written a simple REST service called as banking/login and I will give username password. And assume I'm not writing entire logic, just assume you are just writing a big logic with respect to transfer account numbers, all these things. Now the request is going from this method to which method? Transfer method. So here assume you are having hundreds of lines. While you are writing the logic like whether he is having enough amount in his account or not before transferring to the other account. Then if it is available, then verifying other's account is available or not. So like assume like that. Now in this case, if I call this REST service bank/login, okay, no problem. So here, let me do one thing. What is the details? Okay, so login transfer something you can say as 201 something. Leave about the status code also. You got the thing. Now, who did the login? Who transferred the amount? Suresh is the person, right? So where you are in future, you have to maintain a track in our application also. Where is console? Sorry. Okay, sent request. Okay, after that, Dilip sent his login. He was doing some activities. After that, so and so. Okay, other person sent he was doing his own activities. Okay, same banking applications. Lot of customers are using same applications. Okay. Like wrong, something like that. Now in this case, tell me how many users requests I sent as of now? You can we remember? No, right? And at the same time, okay, what are the user IDs you can remember? So we have any proof, we have any trace at what time? Everyone is doing banking operations from their mobile accounts or maybe net banking accounts. But do you have any trace? So how many users logged into your application? At what time they logged in? At what time they logged out? How much amount they are transferring from their account to another account? Do you have any trace here? No, right? So in real-time applications, generally what we will do here it is, most of the times, when you are writing any functionality, when you are implementing any functionality, we have to write down a meaningful logger messages. That is what the logging. Logging means what you are logging. So and so user logged in, okay, into this application like that. So you have to print his user ID. And now when you are so he was initiated transfer. So then you will write down user initiated transfer. Like that, you have to write down the flow. So now see if same thing, if I return the loggers, what is the importance of loggers now you can understand. Okay, so if you see here, okay. So now I just added what? I added any business logic. I added only helping statements. I added any business logic? No, right? Are we made any calculations? No, right? Already logic is working as earlier also. You can see everything is working as expected. But what is the problem in earlier case? In future, you have to verify, okay, customer came to you and he was reporting some issue. So do you have any proof at the time he was logged in or not? In previous case? No, right? So now see here, I'm sending the request, okay, with different user IDs, different passwords or whatever it is. Okay, everyone is doing their banking operations. Okay, now tell me, now see here. So you have a proof or a trace for every user at what time. Okay, he sent request from which account to which account he transferring the amount, what amount he was transferring. So if you are writing that kind of statements, now you have a trace on. So now can say so and so SDD user logged into our application, he was transferred amount from so and so account. So and so user logged into our application, he transferred amount from his account to another account. So another user, another account to another account. Now you have a trace or not. Similarly, if you return 10 to 15 classes, 10 to 15 methods, if you are keep on writing this kind of helping, if you are writing this kind of system.out.println messages, you will have a logic understanding or execution point of view, as well as in future anything if you want to verify what happened in the past. What happened in the past. Now I will keep this laptop until evening like this, and I will come back in evening and I have to verify so and so user Dilip. Okay, so as of now Dilip is the customer reported like morning 8 a.m. I started logging into my account and I was trying to transfer the amount from my account to my friend account, but it is not happening. Okay, my app is not suggesting, I cannot see any response, something like that, a customer reported. Now, as a developer, what you will see, it's reported at evening time, but he was saying like he initiated transaction at 8 a.m. Now, if you come back and verifying this data, Dilip is available. Dilip is really logged into our application. Dilip is really logged into our application. The request came to the backend application for the user called as Dilip. You have anything here for the Dilip? No, right? Then you will tell to the front end team or something like the request is not really reached for the Dilip customer. Now you will inform to the so and so team. Now they will verify with the customer one more time. So we verified from our backend systems. We found like your details or your request not reached to our backend systems. Can you retry one more time? Then customer will say, what? My mobile data is switched off. You got the point now? So those kind of issues we will get. So with mobile data is switched off, he was trying to enter his username password. Is it going to work? You got the point now? When you open the mobile app, you switch off your mobile data, internet, and you are sending the username password. Is it come back to the backend? No, then he will say, after we are doing lot of R&D, once we are reaching to the customer, hey, we verified all our backend applications, nowhere we can see a trace, a log, okay, something like nowhere we can see your request is reaching us. Can you retry one more time, restart your mobile one more time, or restart, okay, your mobile one more time and try it one more time. Then you will say like, no, my problem is solved. How it is solved? At the time I switched off my mobile data. Now I switched on my mobile data and I started logging, it is okay. So then how can you say that? I mean, in this case, how you resolve the issue? How you resolve? One of the way is loggers. So that's why every real-time application 100% will give priority to the meaningful logging messages. Okay, that means you have to write down system.out.println, whatever we written here, system.out.println inside the, in place of that, we have a libraries called as logging libraries we have. Okay, those are all called as loggers, log framework, logging frameworks. Okay. So in the market, so those are all called as logging frameworks. But here, Spring Boot, so logging is 100% a real-time requirement or a real-time need or not. Making loggers, writing loggers in every real-time application is a 100% required thing or not? Yes, 100% required. Whenever it is 100% required, then Spring Boot thought like anyway loggers or logging framework in every real-time application we are going to use, and we are going to write down the loggers inside the methods based on the flow what you have to understand. Simple guys. You are writing request reach it to the controller. From controller it will reach it to the service layer, service to repository. If you are writing your own understanding statements, right? So in place of that, now what you have to write down going further? Loggers you have to write down. So now Spring Boot thought like, anyway, every real-time application, not only our programming language application, any another programming language applications also, if it is JavaScript, what you have? Anyone knows JavaScript? Console.log, right? console.log, right? If you written something in the console log, it will print in the dev tool section, right? I don't know more about the front end, right? So console.log. So that is also one of the logger with respect to JavaScript. Similarly, every programming language will have their own logging frameworks. Okay, in Java also we have a lot of logging frameworks. But now you can ask one question: why we have to take third-party logging frameworks when you are already having system.out.println in our Java language itself, right? So if you see here, system.out.println, what it is doing every time, it is printing the message. But do you know this message coming from which class? Can you say? Out of your real-time project is having 1000 classes. Now this message coming from which class? Okay, fine. Now this message printing at what time? No, right? So that means there are a lot of drawbacks with the system.out.println. System.out.println will print the message what you given inside the println message. But as a trace, as a proof, at what time what happened? Time is very crucial, right? When you are tracing something, when you are fixing something, when you are analyzing something, time will play a main important role or not. Now Dilip reported 8 a.m. I tried the login. But you don't have any time stamp here. So and so Suresh logged in at what time? You are having information like Suresh is logged in, but at what time? So that's why whenever you are making these kind of messages are getting printed, so you have to make sure two things. From which class this message is printing, from what line, or at least class wise, from which class it is printing, and at what time the method is the line is executed, and at the time, okay, at what time the method is getting executed, at what time this line is executed, you have to print the time also. Then how it is possible with the system.out.println? So that means, so you are going to say like, for every system.out.println, are we going to write down something like local data that now, something like that? Is it possible for writing every system.out.println? No, right? And at the same time, I have to print from which class it is printing also, out of 1000 classes. So in such case, logging framework will help. Logging framework will give you a lot of other advantages also. Not only this advantage, I'm just simplifying in your simple understanding point of view. So if I replace the same thing with the loggers, how the messages are going to look like, we will see. Okay. So now when it comes to logging frameworks, we have a lot of frameworks inside in our open market, we have a lot of. One is Log4j, SLF4j, J means Java here. Okay, so you do have so many, but these two are very popular with respect to the Java language. And now what Spring Boot thought, we know that Spring Boot is making developer life very easy to set up or configure their project or not. They are giving all the jar files without we are needed to add again Spring MVC jar files, Jackson jar files. We are not adding any jar files anytime because every time mandatory those jar files. Similarly, in this case also, now Spring Boot thought 100% real-time project will use loggers concept. So that's why Spring Boot given integrated logger framework called as SLF4j. So whatever the whatever the SLF4j you have, so that is already integrated along with the Spring Boot framework. When you are using Spring Boot, when you created the project from the Spring Boot, internally you are getting which logging framework by default? SLF4j you are already getting. If it is Spring application, are you going to get this? First of all, you will not get Spring jar files itself. What you have to do that? Inside the pom.xml file, you will add Spring-web, Spring-core. Similarly, you will add SLF4j dependencies into your pom.xml file. SLF4j dependency. So whatever org.slf4j. So these dependencies. Yeah. So this dependency where you will add? Inside the pom.xml file when? If it is a normal Spring Web application or maybe a core Java application also, if it is a core Java application also, you can add. These are all individual components. Now what Spring Boot is doing in this case? Spring Boot is automatically, okay, Spring Boot is internally added this dependency to the project setup. You are automatically getting every time SLF4J. So setup wise, you don't need to do anything. Okay. So, but still, okay. So if it is true or not, let's see SLF4J log files available or not. Jar files available or not. Go to the Maven dependencies. See log4j you have. So internally log4j logback SLF4j. Okay. They given SLF4j log4j everything. So with respect to logging framework integration to our Spring Boot application, are we need to do anything manually? That means are we need to download any jar files? We need to add at least to the pom.xml? No, they are already giving everything in detail and internally. So you don't need to do anything. Straightforwardly, you have to define the loggers. Okay, you have to write down the logger messages. Now, okay. So that means with respect to Spring Boot, already SLF4j, all these things is coming internally. Then how to write loggers? So here in system.out.println, what is system here? Class, right? So what is out? Okay, println method, right? Simply class something object method, right? So similarly, here also every logging framework will give a main class. Okay, for the class you have to inside the class you will have some predefined static methods. Okay, so you just need to use that, and in place of that you will write down. Very simple. Okay, for example, if I am writing loggers for this class, what you have to do is, now in this class, how many methods you will write down generally? I mean, in a class, how many methods? We can write down any number of methods, right? So that means now I have to use a variable in a lot of methods. So where I can declare that method out as an instance variable, as a local variable. It's better to display always. I mean, it's better to declare as a instance variable. So that means I'm declaring here. Okay. So see here what I'm declaring. Logger dot this something I have problem every time. So give me a second. I'll small correction. Some small problem is there is this I found with the previous project also. Okay, so it's all editor problem. It's not anything with our problem. See, I imported logger factor from the SLF4j, logger also from the SLF4j, but when you are writing manually, editor is not helping. Okay, so if I'm writing logger factory SLF4j dot get logger, editor is having some issue, so that's why I'm just copy pasting until this line. This is also SLF4j only. Please observe here both from the SLF4j. Okay, logger factor is a class. From that, what is the get logger? Is a static method. So inside this, what you pass it, tell me. Dot class instance of the current class. Why you are passing dot class? of the current class. Why not other class dot class? So I will tell you what is the reason under. So generally you will create logger object for every individual class like this. It's a very straightforward. Logger factory dot get logger bank controller dot class. Okay, fine. So here this is the logger object you are going to get once this method execution is completed. Now here, if I am taking this logger in place of system.out.println, logger dot, okay, however you have out.println, do you have any other methods also like that? After out, system.out.println. Yes, error. You have a couple of other methods also, right? Similarly here also, with respect to logger point of view, with respect to logger object, see, discussion wise it is very big. Programming wise it is very straightforward. Okay, if you observe here, how many methods you can see? You can see lot of methods. Info, especially we have to remember, I will give you the details, don't worry. Debug is the one thing, error is one thing, info is one thing, okay, trace is one thing, warning is something. Like that you are having different methods. Info, error, debug, trace, warning. You have a lot of methods given by the logger. So here, for example, I am writing right now info. We will see what is the difference between info, debug, at what time, what you have to use and all. I'll explain. So in place of system.out.println, what I am replacing now? Object name dot the method called as info. Inside info, you are passing this message, string message. Okay. So now let me replace everywhere logger.info, logger.info. Yeah. So those three logs only be written, right? So save it. So is it restarted? Yeah, it's restarted. Save all changes. Now let's send the request one more time. Okay, user delete sending the request. So and so person sending the request. So and so person sending the request. So and so person sending the request. Fine. Now if you come back and see the loggers, what is the loggers you observed? Same messages like earlier, but what is the difference you observed? What is the difference between previous one and current one? Okay, let me write down. View wrap. Okay, what is the difference between previous system.out.println way of printing as well as logger.info? So what is this? Class name. So that is what logging framework will help you. So this method, this line, this logic is executed from which class? Bank controller. So tomorrow, if you are seeing some message from here, if you are very identifying the class name, then is it easy to go into the class or not? Going to that class at what line, you will search for this and you will identify what is happening under. Not only that. So what is this? Time also. So at what time we user send the request? At what time transfer is initiated? At what seconds? Time, minutes, seconds, everything will be captured when you are executing the logic. When you are executing the logic. For example, now I have written a service class also, assume auto wide bank service okay. So let me create this class now. Create class bank service inside the service package. So yesterday I shown you how much important when you are practicing defining meaningful packages. I'm telling you whatever I'm defining, define as it is .dto, .controller, controller classes for the controller package, service for the service. You are nearly 100, okay, 99% is nearby real-time coding. I already shown you yesterday proof also, right? So it's up to your choice whether you are utilizing that or not. Okay, so here simply public string. Okay, let's do one thing. What I will do, I will move this logic to the service class. Okay, fine. Now here service dot transfer. Okay, that is also fine. Sorry, private, right? Yes. The Eclipse is also not showing. Okay, so save it. Just I move to that. Now, if you want to print something with respect to service class, you have to create one more logger object for this class point of view. So that means wherever you want to write down the meaningful messages, tracking point of view, tracing point of view, okay, errors, collecting the error information point of view, wherever you want to write down the loggers, in whichever class you want to write down, what you have to do? You have to create a logger object for that specific class only. So in this case, what I have to do again? Logger factory dot get logger. So this is what problem with my editor. I don't know. You just try with your editor also. I will just copy paste only until this line. Okay, save it. Okay, now let's send the request one more time. So you can see here, but if you observe here, amount transferring from so and so, printing from what class? I mean, what it is printed? Bank controller. But this logic is available in which class? Bank service. Why it is printing bank controller then? Yes, here that is why whenever you are creating a logger object for every individual class, here you have to pass always the dot class, the class name. Simply you have to pass this name here. So to avoid that problem also dynamically, they are asking us current class name dot class. Okay, so if you take an bank service dot class, now this logger object is created internally with a class called as bank service. Now, whenever it is printing the info method or this line is printed with respect to logger.info, so internally this logger object contains which class name? Bank service. So now see if you are sending the request one more time, clear the console, send the request. Now see here, bank controller request came for the login. So then from controller to it reach to the service class or not? Right? Now see how meaningful, okay, the way you are understanding the programming, I mean, how the way you are understanding with respect to the logic execution. So is it reaching from controller to service or not? So yes, from bank controller to bank service. So like that, logger frameworks will give you, okay, the more advanced, okay, the more, okay, information about the logging, what you are printing, like from which class it is printing, from at what time it is printing. Now, so and so Suresh, okay, so I will make it as something like this. So the currently time at 8:26. So at 8:26, Suresh sent the request, he was doing some activities. Okay, Suresh at the rate gmail.com. Now assume you collected this logging information into some file. Okay, in real-time projects, what will happen? Do you think per second, thousands of loggers will be created and added to the console? Then what in real-time project will do? They will maintain 6 years, 4 months back also. Then how it is possible when thousands of lines is printing? So how they are storing this information? Generally what people will do is in real-time projects, for every 24 hours or based on the application complexity, they will collect these logs into a backup file and they will create a file and they will take a backup. Okay, they will take always loggers into backup. For example, assume you are writing a notepad. You felt like it is reaching 200 lines. Then what you will do? If you are feeling lengthy, you will save that as a file number 1 and you will open one more file. In the current file, you are writing the current information. Previous file is having little bit old information, but overall, all the information. Similarly, here also, real-time projects, okay, what we will do? These loggers will be collected into a separate files based on the timestamp. From last 24 hours, they will collect all these things as a backup file. They will store into some memory location. And again, freshly, they will add new logs into new file. Again, it is reaching to another 24 hours. Again, that log file will be saved it as a backup file, and one more log file will be created with current date and current timestamp. Like that, we will apply a technique. So at the end, you are having the stack trace of every user activity from last 1 year, 2 years or not? Yes, you will have. So that is how, when you are making any, okay, that is how general investigation point of view. I mean, that's what I'm telling you, right? Not only investigation, when you are calling to the customer care, they will ask all these details. They will ask all these details. I mean, all this means at what time you send the request. Now, why they are asking time, send me? I mean, just guess. If they are not asking the time, how, okay, millions of lines available in the loggers, it's very difficult to search your user ID. If you are saying the time, they will go to the April 11th log file. Okay, earlier I told you one example. April 11th, your transaction is failed. Today you are reporting 16. How many days back? 5 days back. So if you are saying like April 11th, then they will directly go to that log file. Or in nowadays there are some other techniques also came. We will have a filters, loggings, okay, mechanisms point of view. I will give April 11th in between 10 to 10:30 for the user ID or account number 1233345 like that. Then it will give me that logging mechanism will give me entire. In that half an hour with that user ID, what are the activities is done, whatever the logging messages you printed, everything will be given there. Then I will find out at what time you logged in, what is the amount he was trying to transfer, why it is failed, any exception came. So like that. So like that, the loggers are going to help us. Now guess, what is this info? Why our messages are printing as info? These are all user logging messages we written as what? Info. Why info? Because we written as info, right? So then what is the difference between other methods? Like we can see something like debug, error, okay, trace, we have right, warning something. So why logging is giving these many differentiations like info, error, warning, all this point of view. Have you ever tried system.error out.println will print in the black color. If you are printing print error, what it will print? Red color. Why? Why they are printing in the red color? Why that method is printing that message in the red color? Symbolic. As a symbolic, it is a exception, error message, right? So errors means danger, right? As a symbolic point of view, they are displaying in the red color, right? So, however, a small system.out.println, system.out.print error, you are having, okay, error methods like that. Similarly, here also logging framework also is having different levels of logging. So, at what time, which logging you have to, which level you have to take, I will tell you. And I will show you one more point. I am restarting my application. So, you are seeing generally, now you can understand. Now, what is this time? What is this info? What is this? Can you understand now? Now understand? Okay, for example, Tomcat started on the port number or this message you are seeing, right? Now tell me what is this message? It's a log message or not? Like however we written right now in our user defined classes, we written. Similarly, Spring Framework team written these messages in their classes. Now this message coming from which class? From the class called as Tomcat Web Server. From the package called as org.spring.boot. Okay, web.embedded.tomcat. See, they are giving package name also. Sometimes we may have same class name in different packages, right? So they are giving package name also. Now go to this class. How to open the predefined class? You know, Control Shift T. T means type. Control Shift T. Open type. Okay. So give that class name, and they given this is the class name, right? Open this class. Okay. Now search for that message. Tomcat started. So what this? Whatever the message coming from there, they are doing as logger.info. That's why it is printing as so this is info, right? So now you understanding what are all these messages? These are all messages automatically coming, or these are all messages already written inside the predefined classes of Spring Framework. These are all written by the Spring developers. That's why you are seeing it's not like something automatically coming. Okay, now you understood what are the lines you are seeing in every console. Now you can go and open the Tomcat server. In your Tomcat server also, every time you will see the messages, right? web apps, your application is deployed into web apps, started on the Tomcat number 8080. What are all those messages? Loggers, log messages. So if you are not able to see what this message is telling you, by seeing this message, what you are feeling, your application is started successfully without any exceptions. Whenever you are seeing that message, you will feel like my application is good without any errors and exceptions, right? So that means that is how loggers will help you to understand the errors. For example, tomorrow, if you see here, I given wrong password. Okay, let me restart one more time. Okay, it is executing one by one class internally. They are trying to invoke the connection pool of the database and you are getting what? Exceptions. Okay, go and verify here. What is this now? Error. Why error? Error representing what? An exception. So they are saying very clearly now, go to the upper lines also. So error. So in place of info, they are displaying as error. So why the error is? They are printing the reason, invalid username password. So that's why login is denied. So have you seen Tomcat started on the port number 9999? So that means now what you are feeling? Your application is having issue. Your application is having some problems. So that means loggers are helping us in how many ways? First thing, as a developer point of view, it is helping us what's happening in our logic execution flow. Okay, right? Second thing, once logic execution, development is completed, everything is good. You moved your application to the live environment. Now customers started using the application. Now, if you return the loggers, you are maintaining the customers. Okay, at what time they are doing the login, at what time, okay, how much amount they are transferring. So if you return all those messages in your methods, everything will be maintained as a history or not? Everything will be maintained as a history or not? Now that history will become as a proof or not? That history will become as a proof. That history will be used for analyzing the old issues. Okay, at what time he did, everything will be tracked. So that's why in our Gmail applications, your Instagram, whatever it is, as a technical people, don't do any nonsense things. Okay, everything will be tracked in the back end at what time you logged in, from which computer, which host name. Okay, so don't do like blind mistakes like something like illiterate people. So everything will be tracked in our application. Whenever you are doing anything, everything will be tracked. Okay, so now you guess at what is the meaning of error here it is. So what is the class? Hikari pool. So in this Hikari pool, exception during something. Can I open Hikari pool or not? Control Shift T, Hikari pool. See here, what they written this? Info or error? Error, right? So that means what you understood difference between info versus error? It is simple. Println versus system.out.println when you are writing. System.out. What are the methods you know? Append method. So print will print always in the where is the error? Sorry? Yeah. Right? So anyway, however, my point here it is out representing a normal message, a successful message point of view. Error representing any exceptional cases, any errors you received, runtime exceptions, compile time exceptions, any arithmetic exceptions kind of thing, right? So similarly here also, they given into different levels. Okay. So at what time they displayed the error? When you given the invalid username password, something is wrong. That's why they displayed in the label they given as error. So that means in reality, when you are writing real-time applications also, we have to remember a couple of things. That is, info we have to use, okay, for logging, okay, logging regular flow messages. Okay, request received, request moving from controller to service class, request received for delete, amount transferring from 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, dynamically from so and so account. These kind of messages you have to write down always inside info messages. Okay. Second thing, error messages. Whenever you are handling an exception, you would like to make sure something user entered username password wrong. So then you have to print as an error. I mean, not that case. I can say like, for example, you are handling an exception in try catch block. In try, an exception occurred. Then it reaches to where? Catch block. So now in catch block, why you reach it to the catch? Why it reached to the catch block? Because of an exception. Now I have to print that exception reason why it came, divided by 0 or something like that. So now those kind of messages, we have to take it as logger.info or logger.error. Logger.error. So that means to print regular messages, we have to go with the info by default. If you want to print any error messages, okay, then you have to write down logger.error. Then you have to write down logger.error. Okay, so only error scenarios point of view that, okay, that message has to be printed. And that message you have to define always as a logger.error. That's why then only you can see here as info and error in our program also. Okay, so if I do what I will do here, it is I will explain. Okay, sometimes I'm just stopping this. Logger.error. Logger.debug. Logger.trace. Same message I'm writing in different methods. Now you can easily conclude how, at what time, how it is behaving under. Info error, debug. Yeah, warn. Warn means warning. What is the difference between warning and error? Can you tell me? Warning and error. Error will stop your flow. Warning will not stop flow. Warning is saying like you should not use it. It's not recommended way. Your work will be done. They are giving warning. It's not the recommended way. So that's why when you start it, sometimes you will see the warning messages, but your flow will not be disturbed. But they are saying like you have to correct something. That is what. But error is stopping your flow. That is what the difference between error and warning. Fatal errors. Okay. So just take these flows. Don't worry about too much. I will tell you what will be used at what time and all. Okay. Now let me restart my application. Okay. I need to correct password also. Simple. Overall concept is what? In place of system.out.println, we have to use always in real-time projects loggers. Okay. If it is Spring Boot application, do we need to do any extra setup for the logging framework? No. By default, they are giving log4j and slf4j. So to create logger object for every individual class, what is the process we have to follow? Log factory dot get logger, and inside that, what is the parameter we will pass? The current class dot class instance. Okay. So that then only it in the console level, it will print always the class name. If you give another dot class name, it will print with other dot class name. So then you will get a confusion. Message is printing from another class, you given in get logger into another class. So please make sure always giving current class dot class. Okay, fine. After that, you have to use methods called as, if whatever the messages you want to print, overloaded methods will be available with respect to info, debug, error, var, trace. Okay, all these things. But at what time you have to go for info, at what time you have to go for error, we are discussing that point now. See, I'm sending the request now. You got leave it. by default, what are printed? Bank login, bank login, bank login, leave it. So by default, what printed? Info, error, and warning. So error is printed in the red color. Generally, when you have to use the error, in any exceptional cases, you have to write down there as a logger.error. Why debug is not printed? Why trace is not printed? This is printed. Okay, this is in regular way. We will write down always info. Error is somehow we are going to write down to print the error messages. Okay, fine. But why debug is not printed? Why trace is not printed? So the reason is logging framework will not enable by default all the log levels. Generally, these are all called as log levels. Log levels. What it is? Log levels. Level means info, debug, var, error, trace. Okay. So these are all log levels. The default log level is always info. That means when you return logger.info, logger.error, logger.warning, logger.debug, logger.trace messages, by default, debug will not be printed, trace will not be printed. So that means by default, these two lines or these two messages will never ever printed. Okay, by default. But always info, warning, error messages will be printed. For example, the messages, if you want to see debug also, you have to enable the log level. So if you want to see these messages, we have to enable log level. We have to enable the log level. How to enable log level? I'll tell you. But if you see here, the hierarchy point of view, log level, see it's a very simple only, don't worry too much. And only one time activity, sorry, log level hierarchy. Okay, if you see here, so if you given by default, what is the log level? Info I told, right? So if you given info, it will print warning messages, info messages, error messages, as well as fatal messages. I mean logger.fatal something. Now by default is info, that's why debug is not printed. So if you want to see the debug messages, you have to make log level as a debug. You have to make log level as a debug. So that means where you have to make. By default, debug messages are going to be printed even though you are writing, never ever printed. Only info. Okay, by default log level equal to info. So that's why it will print error, warning, info. But when you want to make sure, you have to see the debug messages also. Logger.debug, whatever you written. So for that, you have to enable log level as a debug. You have to override info with the debug. Internally, they are taking always as a info. Now you have to override with the debug. How to do that, I will tell you. Similarly, the highest priority is having trace. So if you enable the trace, then automatically debug logs will be printed, info logs will be printed, warning will be printed, error will be printed, fatal will be printed. Okay, like that. Or you can completely disable logs also. Even you cannot print info messages also by default. Then you can disable the logging also. But nowhere people will disable the logs. By default, what is the log level? Info. Now I have to make it as debug. What I have to do? So here, Spring Framework is making our life very easy. You don't need to do anything. So you have to define a property called as logging. Okay, if you see here, there are predefined properties from the Spring Boot. Logging dot, okay, not dot. You have to take what? Colon, next line, because YAML file. Okay, if you see here, logging dot level. So logging dot level, what is the value we are trying to give? Okay. I can give capital letters also. Let's see. Now, okay, no. Root I have to give, but I will tell you. Okay, I will do. It's not terminated one. So here, I am giving root. I will tell you what is the meaning of root. Debug. So what is the log level I given now? Debug I given, right? So this property I have added now. Now let me restart my application one more time. So what you are seeing, there are a lot of debugs now. Debug messages from where? From the predefined classes of Spring Framework or not. So that means inside predefined classes, they already written logger.debug. Why you are not seen earlier? Why you saw only info earlier? Like Tomcat started deploying something like that. You are seeing always only info messages. Why not debug? Because in the predefined classes also the log level is always info. So when you are enabling or overriding with debug, so under debug info is also available or not. So when you enable as debug messages will be printed, info messages will be printed, warning will be printed, error will be printed. Okay. So that's why you are seeing lot of debugs from the predefined classes also. Not only from our user defined, you are seeing from the predefined also. Internally what they are writing, what they are doing, everything you are doing via debug. Okay, fine. So just clear the console, send the request. Okay, now if you see our console, so is it printed debug also or not this time? It is printed debug also or not? So that means now you can ask one question. Why they given info on debug? Okay, error you are clear. What messages you have to write down? Whenever you are writing, you have to print error message. What log level, what method you will choose? Logger dot error. Okay, you want to write down a normal message. Your request received, transferring to so and so account. This kind of messages where you will write down info you will write down. Then what is the debug here? Error, okay, somewhat we are having clarity. Warning also, you may have a clarity. For example, you are giving a warning, next time onwards, don't use this format. Right now I am accepting, next time onwards, don't use it. It's a warning or error? It's a warning. That means you are saying like right now I am accepting, going further, don't use this. It's not recommended. That's all. Warning. That kind of messages where you will write down logger.warning. But what is the debug here it is? So generally, debug messages, logger.debugs, when you have to write down here it is, the crucial information, okay, the crucial information you have to, nested, I can say like, I cannot say like crucial. See, you, whenever you want to make sure, when you are doing the analysis, that messages has to be printed as part of your program execution. As part of your program execution, couple of messages has to be printed by default. Couple of messages should not be printed, okay, by default. Then what you will choose? By default, couple of messages, couple of lines should be printed. By default, couple of lines should not be printed. Then where you will write down? Whatever you are expecting to be printed, you will write down inside the logger.info. Whatever should not be printed, you will write down in the debug. Then you can ask if it is not printing, what is the use then? So that means tomorrow, okay, so you will write down inside the logger.debug something like the user amount 3,000 rupees transferring from, okay, for the user ID Dilip 123 to the another account Suresh 143, something like that. Okay, so and so account number like that. You are writing some couple of, it contains some sensitive information that should not be printed by default. Okay, that should not be printed by default. That messages where you will write down then debug. So that means in real-time projects, what we will do is we will write down the logic. Logger.info, we will write down, okay, user Suresh Dilip initiating the transfer. Logger.debug, Dilip 123 from the account number 3,000 rupees is trying to transfer to Suresh for the so and so account number like that. I write a lot of messages in the debug. That should not be printed by default. Then what is the use? For example, now after some point of time, Suresh Dilip came back and he reported an issue. Or a lot of customers came and reporting so and so time, they were not able to, okay, they got a lot of issues, they are facing problems. Then what the developers will do, they will go back to the environment, they will set log level equal to debug. Okay, then all the messages, whatever you written logger.debug by already, those are all activated. Those are all activated. So now, earlier you can see only one message, request received for the transfer. Now if you enable log level as debug, what you can see? You can see very clear information also. Very clear information also. Okay, like Dilip from the account number so and so amount transferring to something like that. So that means that is what the information, sensitive information, by default you should not log. Only analysis point of view, only troubleshooting point of view, then you have to enable log level as debug, and okay, then you have to reproduce, or you are going to send the request one more time, and then those messages will be. So generally debug message, what is the meaning of debugging? I think I given you debugging session one day. Breakpoints, all these things. What you are doing with the debug? You are analyzing the step-by-step execution, right? So that means analysis point of view, whatever the messages you required as a developer, those messages you will write down in the debug point of view. So that in future anything comes, you will enable the debug. So that you will see normally you will see 3 to 4 messages. If you are enabling debug, those messages also printed in the, okay, line by line, then you will have a lot of information. Then it is easy to find out where, at what time, at what line, at what method, at what class, what is happening when you are having hundreds of Java classes or thousands of Java classes. Those messages you will write down inside the debug. But in reality, I am telling you, most of the times we will write down what? Info. First priority logger.info. If you want to print any error messages, especially in the catch blocks, these kind of things, okay, error received, exception occurred due to so and so reason, something like that, those messages you are going to write down as logger.error. The messages what are going to be help you when you are analyzing or troubleshooting the problems, those messages are helpful. Those messages you have to write down inside the debug point of view. So that's why now if I enable as debug, you can see debug messages from our classes as well as predefined classes also. Now if you see here sun.load, that means it is taking logger messages from our Java also, from our Java predefined classes also. What I can suggest you here it is, instead of root, you can give like this, spring framework oh okay, down I have to write down, that's what problem. org : so package level. So now what I'm doing, package level, Spring framework, yeah, I got it. That's why properties is very easy to teaching point of view. But anyway, we will take one example. I given space. Okay, do one thing. I will explain another 10-15 minutes tomorrow also. I don't want to. So sometimes, why I have to see all unnecessary predefined Spring debug messages also. I have to see only from my user defined classes debug messages. If you see here, these are all debug messages coming from your user defined classes, are all launches from the Spring framework, from core Java classes. From everything it is coming. Root means everything. In the JVM, whatever the Java class is loading, wherever debug messages are available, everything is printed. But I don't want to print from root level. I have to print from my package point of view. So in the material it is there. If you want, you can find out. I will explain tomorrow also. Now if I given logging.level. Package where it is, yeah, com.delete.spring.boot.rest.api :debug, then under this package, whatever the Java classes, wherever you written debugs, only those will be printed. The remaining things will not be printed. That means you are restricting with respect to which package you have to debug enable. So we will see tomorrow because we don't have the time. Leave it. Root : debug. Then see how, what are the debug messages are printing. It will print log. So why by default we will not enable debug? Tell me. Generally info itself, it will take longer size. It will reduce the performance of application also. So that's why nowhere by default debug will not be enabled in any real-time application, because these are all messages are getting printed by the JVM. So that means unnecessarily JVM working for unnecessary things are not. Then it will reduce application performance or not. So that's why info will be enabled default. Debug will be enabled at what time? If you want to troubleshoot something, if you want to analyze something in our local environments, we will enable the debug. I will explain tomorrow also. We will see. At least you got, in place of system.out.println, you have to use now onwards loggers. Going further, you can also don't write sysout, start writing now onwards loggers. It's very important. Okay, let's connect on tomorrow. See, system is also going down. I mean, became slow. Why? JVM is very active. That means we will make it as info. Yeah, we will connect tomorrow.